Kelby and Braylon both, when we got them, it's kind of a funny story. I found a picture the other day as I was looking through some old media guide things. I actually found the actual photos of them as a freshman, their freshman team pictures, and both of them were tiny. I mean, they both look like they're in third grade their freshman year. But they had a great work ethic. They did it. You could tell that right there they were still very, very young, but they're going to be very dynamic players. They had the work ethic, they had the drive, they had the ability, and to see them go from the little small freshmen to all of a sudden to the fine men they've become has really been a joy. Not only to coach them, but to see that growth. And both of them are so smart, so driven, and I really look forward to seeing the things they're going to do. And I think one day these will be two guys that, when you look back and go, hey, these guys helped change, the country. I really think those are two of the best players in the area. Braylon goes to the All-Star game, and every coach you talk to says, hey man, this was the best receiver by far that's here. And well, that's what we've been telling everybody forever. And Kelby, I think Kelby's probably one of the best D linemen to come from this area probably in the last 10 years. Recruiting process for both those guys, honestly, I think those are guys that before the transfer portal and those type of things, I think both those guys 4 or 5 years ago would have had probably 40 or 50 offers. I mean, they're those caliber of players, and transfer portals really hurt high school recruiting. And so the recruiting process, I would say, would be easy, but it's gotten more difficult every single year. And those guys, we've really had to hit the phones and those things. And anytime you have a sport, you're going to have setbacks, as a player and coaches and everything else. And Kelby had a little minor knee last year and went through rehab and things of that nature. Braylon's had, you've had injuries here or there, and last year he played a whole lot of with ankle injuries and things of that nature. So those guys have just persevered and worked through and knew their goals and knew what it took to get there. And just any challenge that was put before them, they approached it like champions and overcame it, which allowed them to get to this point. So I think they're very dynamic. As a coach, it gets frustrating that you talk to 1,500 colleges about them, and just those guys have their processes, new processes, and really the frustrating part is just having to wait. Just because they're, coach, we really love this guy, we want him, we want to take him, but we're going to evaluate the portal, we're going to evaluate who's transferring, see if somebody's coming from a Power 5 school, and so that's kind of really the frustrating part. And both those guys handled that very well. We were very upfront with the process with them, and they talked to the coaches just like we did. So nowadays in recruiting, you just have to be patient, which sounds really easy to say, but when you're actually living it and your future's determined on it, it really puts you in a bind and puts a lot of stress on them. So it was kind of stressful for those guys, as well as us as the coaching staff trying to get them recruited. But I'm glad it worked out, and both of them seem very happy with the schools they're going to.
How do you think his potential and growth is going to reflect in college?
Fantastic. He's got one of the best work ethics of anybody I've ever coached. He's always the first one there, always the last one to leave. Me and Braylon will text during the week, sometimes 10, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, just about because we're both watching film. He'll shoot me a random text, I'll shoot him one. So nobody's going to outwork him. And I think he has a chip on his shoulder, which I'm glad he does, because so many other people that were not as good players as him received offers, and he saw that, and I think it's motivated him to not only get a Division I scholarship, but also to be a guy once he gets there. I don't think Braylon's going to be satisfied just being at Grambling. I think he wants to play at Grambling, be an all-conference kid for Grambling, and hopefully get a shot to play professional football if that's what he wants to do. But he's one of the few kids that I've coached at the high school level that there's really no concerns about him adjusting. Obviously Kendrick's one, Kelby's one, and Braylon's definitely one as well, that I think as soon as they jump into college, they're going to be ready mentally to handle the grind of it. Summer, there were certainly glimpses of how good he could be, but when you're going through the spring and the summer and you're not wearing pads during the summer, when you're going through your 7-on-7 things, you're not sure how that's going to translate. I felt like we had a really, really special player. I felt like he was, vastly underused the year before. Going back and looking at film, he always caught my eye as a guy that could help us, and I never could figure out why he wasn't a bigger part. So that was kind of the main goal, was make him a big part of our offense. And so, yeah, I saw the potential there, but I don't know if anybody would have guessed he would have led the team in every category and be the dominant player he was. I've said this to college coaches, he's the best receiver in North Louisiana and one of the top 5 receivers in the state. So, yeah, we knew that the talent was there, but, I think the production that he had and what I could have asked for him was far exceeded anything that I probably had hoped for.
I'm Braylon Finney, and I'm attending the Grambling State University.
How do you feel you have grown as an athlete from freshman to senior year?
Physically, I've definitely gotten better. I got bigger, faster, and stronger. And mentally, I wouldn't say I'm mature because I'm still childish, but I learned how to be more controlled with my playing because I do play a lot.
About your relationship with Kelby?
So Kelby and I have a very good relationship, which preceded by that, I actually coached his brother. And so, Kelby and I go back a long time when he was actually a ball boy here for us when his brother was playing. And so, when Kelby first came as a D lineman, he showed a lot of potential, and he kind of sat the bench his sophomore year behind some experienced players and learned, and then you could just tell that he was soaking up information, the wrong things that they were doing, making corrections on his end, and by the time he got his shot, he never looked back. And he's, I would arguably say, one of the most dominant defensive linemen that I've ever coached, that's ever walked through here, that's ever put on a helmet at our school. And he literally changed offense's game plans because of how good he was at what he did. Say is that we were very close. There was a lot of just conversations, joking going on, and one thing I loved about that group was that when it was time to work, they understood it was time to work. But other times though, we had plenty of fun, a lot of laughs, a lot of love, and that's something that I learned from my time as a young coach, where maybe I didn't understand this, and as I've had children now, my approach to coaching my players has always been, I'd want to coach them how I want my sons coached. And so I view Kelby and my other D linemen as just other sons. That's how I view them. And I'm responsible for them, not only in the game of football, getting them prepared to be successful in our games, but also preparing them for what happens after, which will be the game of life. And that's going to be much more important down the road than any game that we play.
Ckelby Givens, and I'm going to the Southern University.
How do you feel like you've grown as a person, as an athlete from freshman to senior year?
As a person, I think I've matured a lot. I'm not as childish as I used to be. And as an athlete, I think I've gotten stronger and gotten more wiser as far as football goes.
Management and everything, I'm gonna definitely miss everybody, especially him, because being here with him every day and talking mess with him, it's something you're gonna miss.
So, and I look forward to them, especially now, going to be competing against each other every year in the Bayou Classic. So that's going to be awesome. And as much as both those guys talk, the Bayou Classic just got a whole lot louder.